дамы и господа, еще 5-10 минут придется подождать. Вы все видели, что у нас проблема со светом. Сейчас оборудование просто заново включается, настраивается. Прошу извинений, прошу терпения. Спасибо. Добрый день. Уже скоро, наверное, добрый вечер. Уважаемые коллеги, уважаемые...
Good evening, dear colleagues and the guests of today's forum, dear ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, we couldn't start on time because of technical issues, not all the equipment, and unfortunately, we've got some issues, and we apologize for that. If we have English-speaking guests here, and you can get your headsets, and use the interpretation feature. So we are going to start now. What should we start with? We would like to express our gratitude that the organizers of Digital Breach, and within the frameworks of this series important meeting 5G on Silk Road, on Silk Way. This is our new standard of connection, new technologies that really conquers the world really actively and dynamically. And very great technology that conquers the world as well. And now it is also at the doorstep of Kazakhstan. And here, we are here at this forum, we would like to discuss possibilities that this technology gives us and will give to people of Kazakhstan and enterprises and to the society in general. Of course, we need to consider the challenges before implementation of this difficult technology, what kind of business we'll have, how we're gonna build our networks, and in general to have the spectrum with, because you know that this is the limited resource. And we have decided to go from some theory aspects about 5G, how it's been developed in the world, and about the spectrum problems. And the last hour, we will have the panel session with the participants of the key players, main key players. There will be the Ministry of Digital Development, the Space Industry, our three respected general directors of representatives GSMA, the global organization, one of the organizers of this digital forum. He'll be the moderator, and then we will finish. And now I would like to discuss and talk about different aspects, and to give the floor to our first speaker. Lots of you don't know what 5G is, and etc., etc. So our respected speaker, who has come from Europe, I would like to invite him, the director on the policy of GSMA in Europe, Mr. Laszlo Todal. Give a big hand of applause.
I'm very happy to be here. First, I would like to thank the Ministry for organizing such an important event on an important topic, Astana for hosting us, and I'm happy and thank to Huawei partnering in organizing this event. I represent GSMA, the global organization unifying the mobile ecosystem, and for those of you who are not familiar with the GSMA, our vision is to unlock the full power of connectivity so that people, industry and society thrive. That's right. So we are working with our members worldwide, delivering to our members advancing policy, underpinning the technology and interoperability, and also we provide a platform to convene the mobile ecosystem at MWC. Let me talk a little bit about the global trends first, and then I'll move to discuss the importance of spectrum in the 5G context. As the world emerges from the pandemic and social and economic activities begin to recover, connectivity, of course, will continue to play a vital role in the way people live, businesses operate, and indeed, digital services underpinned by high-speed, high-performance network are set to become more integral to society in a post-pandemic world. And in this context, unconnected populations will be even at greater risk of exclusion from life life-enhancing services online. In 2021, number of mobile internet subscribers reached 4.2 billion people globally with 2.8 billion SIM cards, but we still have a long road to connect all the unconnected around the world. About 5G adoption, it continues to grow rapidly, mainly in pioneer markets. The total number of connections set to reach 1 billion this year. The momentum has been boosted by a number of factors, including economic recovery from the pandemic, rising 5G handset sales, network coverage expansions, and the overall efforts by mobile operators putting in marketing the benefits of 5G. By the end of 2025, we estimate that 5G will account for around a quarter of total mobile connections, and more than 2 in 5 people around the world will live within the reach of a 5G network. 4G still has room to grow in most developing markets. However, rising 5G adoption in leading markets such as the US, China, South Korea means that 4G adoption on a global level is beginning to decline. As I said, the transition to 5G is occurring at varying speeds, with pioneer markets racing ahead. However, we expect a new wave of 5G rollouts in large markets with modest income levels, such as Brazil, India, Indonesia, that could incentivize the mass production of more affordable 5G devices. And it is important because it could also drive the development of new 5G applications for consumers and enterprises in emerging markets. Maybe about the standalone, non-standalone deployments. As you might know, operators around the world began with the 5G deployment efforts with the non-standalone version of the technology. However, after a slow start, 5G standalone deployments are beginning to ramp up. At the end of last year, there were 22 commercial 5G standalone networks in 16 countries. It is important because the added functionalities by the standalone version are key to delivering on the 5G promise of fully supporting enhanced mobile broadband, ultra-reliable low latency, and of course the massive IoT use cases. Looking at the regional level, we see penetration is around the 60 mark in the region. 3G and 4G count for the majority of connections across the region. In Kazakhstan, 4G adoption has surpassed 3G, accounted for 54% of connections last year, and we see also in the region some launch in 5G as well. Mobile operators are facing capex investment requirements over $600 billion worldwide between 2022 and 2025, roughly 85%. Which will be in 5G networks. So to support the timely development and network evolution, governments and regulators can implement policy frameworks that are conducive to investment, enact effective spectrum management, and policy action that help close the digital divide. One of those policies, one of the most important one I would like to emphasize here is the siting policies. Streamlining planning approval processes, providing access to public infrastructure for network equipment installation, aligning on the international limits, on exposure limits. These are very important issues. These are, I would say, when the rubber hits the road, these are the issues which can slow down the network deployment, where actually having the physical network to deliver all the services of the future. Speed and availability of 5G services, of course, depend on mobile network operators having access to spectrum in low, mid, and high bands to build cost-effective networks. Robust licensing and timely availability of spectrum is also central to the success of 5G deployment. With these plans in place, 5G can transform digital economies across the globe, help lower the broadband usage gap and support digital inclusion. And indeed, digital inclusion and a digital divide is something where further support from government activities could be expected. Digital skills and other public funds for demand side stimulations. But let me talk a little bit more about the spectrum element here. So new spectrum specifically earmarked for 5G has been assigned in 63 countries. A number of other countries are in the process of assigning spectrum, bringing the expected total for the end of the year to 75. Over 200 individual operators have received spectrum for 5G use across three frequency bands, but so far the mid-band has been assigned in the highest number of markets, followed by low band and high band. A little bit more detailed look at the spectrum bands. We see that the 3.5 gigahertz band accounts for around 50% of the 5G network launches, but operators are expanding their 5G footprints in other bands, with 700 emerging as key coverage band. So the mid-band has been the main driver for 5G launches so far, and is expected to help realize the largest portion of 5G's socio-economic benefits in the next decade. So ensuring access to sufficient spectrum, and in particular in this mid-band spectrum, will be key. We estimate that on average 2 gigahertz of mid-band spectrum will be required by each country to deliver the anticipated benefits of 5G. The vision of smart cities, citywide fixed wireless access solutions, and the 5G era of health and education. Based on our conservative assumptions, mid-band 5G spectrum will drive an increase of more than $600 billion in global GDP in 2030, accounting for almost 65% of the overall socio-economic value created by 5G. To realize the potential benefits, countries must fulfill mid-band needs in harmonized ranges, including the 3.5 gigahertz band, the 4.8, and also the 6 gigahertz to deliver economies of scale and lower broadband costs. Considerations on optimal approach for managing spectrum are in the 6 gigahertz range, the 5.9, 7.1. The key consideration here is whether to utilize the parts of the range for licensed broadband or unlicensed use, and it is on the agenda for the next World Radio Communication Conference, WRC 23. Achieving the 2 gigahertz of mid-band 5G spectrum I mentioned earlier is challenging without the 6 gigahertz capacity. The 6 gigahertz range sits at the balancing point to deliver citywide 5G connectivity. Harmonization of the band will provide more bandwidth and improve network performance. The broad, contiguous channels offered by the range will reduce the need for network densification and make the next generation connectivity more affordable for all. We believe that this 6 gigahertz band represents the largest remaining single block of the mid-band spectrum that can be allocated to the licensed mobile in a foreseeable future. That's why we believe governments should carefully consider decisions as the most effective use of this spectrum band. There are a lot of people here in the room who know more about Kazakhstan better than me, but I wanted to highlight that we've noted good initiatives here, where the government and the operators collaborated. I mentioned the 250 plus initiative. Here we believe the government took a balanced approach, compensating coverage obligations on mobile operators with discounts. There are a lot of results we just discussed before the session, the benefits to the villages covered. I know there are a lot of other challenges, but I don't want to steal the thunder. And there will be a panel discussion later on, people from more knowledgeable on the region will discuss. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and I wish you a good conference for the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Laszlo. Thank you very much. Что перед нами выступил.
So here we had the representative of GSMA, and I would like to say the most authorized organization in telecom, because when we need to be convinced or we want to convince someone, we say GSMA said it this way, or GSMA said it this way, or emphasized this aspect, etc. And I would like to remind you, if you have any difficulties with the language, there is the interpretation feature. And now let's move from Europe to our southern neighbor, the Republic of Uzbekistan. Actually, they have implemented 5G, and I would like to give the floor to the Secretary of the Republican Council on the radio frequency, to the Chief of the Regulation, the Ministry of the Informational Technology Development and Communications of the Republic of Uzbekistan, to Mr. Dusmatov. Thank you so much, and I would like to express the gratitude to the organizer for this invitation, because for us it was very important to express our thoughts and opinion on this topic. It's such a great topic, the development of PAG network, and as you know, the global question on using the spectrum, because it's such a factor that will have the impact on the network development, the balanced and harmonized usage in our Central Asian region. I will not be saying just about my country, because this balanced and harmonized this frequency usage on the region, it's impossible. So in the beginning, let's start considering PAG network development in Uzbekistan. I wanted by means of my report, I wanted to show you the number and the density of our users. Historically, it was this way, very close to the border, and the population of Uzbekistan is more than 35 million people, and the members and users of the mobile network, more than 30 million. Great number of the users and operators. They provide the service, 5 mobile operators. And to those 5 operators, if we say about the frequencies, waves, and on implementing and deployment of 5G, we have the licensed spectrum, 700 range for these operators, and 100 megahertz, and we have done the allocation to others on 100 millihertz. The launch, we have the launch in Tashkent. It was done in 2021. And in Samarkand, we started 5G network in 2022. Speaking about the investments, I'd like to mention that the way we go to this 5G development, the great flow of investment goes and devoted to infrastructure, and we can consider this great change and great aspect on the basic stations installations. It's just speaking on LTE and 5G basic stations, mostly LTE stations, and 5G goes to the development. And great investment is devoted to this infrastructure. The main goal, the main objective that we have, the development of infrastructure. What's happening in Tashkent? There is a great opportunity, payment capacity. Speaking of Tashkent, is not that large, but Uzbek Telecom, to show how Uzbek Telecom is developing. For Tashkent, it's planned to install 150 stations as this in the beginning, and the big bandwidth, it's quite nice and positive expectations. And what is the situation in the regions. We have basically divided. Our GSM colleagues have mentioned that we have the spectrum mid-band, low-band, and high-band in a millimeter range. And in my report, I've divided into four. The range which is the lower than 1 gigahertz.
This is actually the perfect part that we may guarantee in our region. Why? Because of the closest proximity. The towns and the villages are located close to each other, and based on the experience that we have in Uzbekistan, there's going to be a very nice network which could be used as an addition to 700 or higher ranges. Up to 1 gigahertz, and the previous generation stations belonging to the mid-band 1.8 to 2.6. This is the baseline, and what we are striving for is the neutrality in the spectrum, and that could be used as an advantage by the operators, and the mid and the high band is going to be used for the city use. And in my upcoming slides, I will brief you about how we have performed our tasks as a regulator. So what have we done? We made it as a reserved capacity. So we don't have the operators to work with this range yet. However, for the local usage, this is good to go. And I think that this is the most appropriate approach. And it could be actually replicated in other countries as they do it in the United States, for instance, and elsewhere. And if there is a demand for this range, then we will, be prepared for the band use. And if the range is lower than 1 gigahertz, and in Uzbekistan we have our own specifics, which I'm not going to be commenting, but what I want to draw attention to is the digital dividends. The entire region, not only Uzbekistan, is famous for well-developed LTE, and the next level is the range that is marked in green, and there's a great potential there. As I said before, in Uzbekistan we have launched the spectrum, and our neighbors actually could have used our experience in order for them to develop their 5G network. And then, looking at the lower band, that could be the basic for the digital TV. And as you know, some of my colleagues could confirm that the WRC of 2023 is going to be addressing this issue. I would like to be brief in terms of sharing my opinion. I think that in case if we are going to be having the basic bandwidth for TV, then there's no other alternatives for us. And at the same time, how have we developed the distribution of commercial ranges and bandwidth? This was something that we have completed back in 2019, and as of now, actually, we have 2 operators who have been licensed accordingly, and they've been operating and performing their duties. Why? It wasn't that complex, because from the very beginning, we haven't planned actually to have the digital TV. When we switched off the analog TV, we haven't even looked at keeping the base bandwidth for TV. Again, I'm making reference to 2019, and we wanted to reserve the bandwidth exclusively for the mobile communications. However, in order to launch INT, and this is the standardized iTube this has to be provided, and we have neighboring countries who are still using the analog TV, and therefore the Central Asian region has to harmonize the television capabilities. And I have depicted the statistics. I think that my statistics is outdated and needs to be updated. As Mr. Chair has already demonstrated earlier, in accordance with the data that I have, I've been using, by the way, the GSMA data, and those slides demonstrate the leading countries in terms of the bandwidth. And by this time, perhaps the number of countries has already grown. And now I'd like to share the statistics with you. It is inevitable not to use the statistics, but in accordance with GSA, as of August of 2022, the operators and the regulators of our neighboring countries have the following performance. And as a regulator, actually, you know, often operators come to me and they say that they have expanded the network of devices. You know, the most popular band, the 28th, band 28, you know, is very positive and has a great business potential. So the number of institutional operators worldwide is growing, and has been growing exponentially. In terms of the practicality, what I'd like to share is that since last year, for instance, Uzbekistan has created favorable conditions and has provided the incentives. Number one is there's a good coverage, especially in the capital city in Tashkent. We have tested the in-building capabilities of internet coverage in our capital city, and you see the detailed information on the screen. So what we have found out is that it's going to cost us not that much in order to construct the network supporting facilities. And in terms of the area, the coverage isn't going to be that massive. So at the moment, the operators still stick to LTE. However, we've launched, actually, in addition, the 5G capabilities. So let us now discuss the issues, the problems. In the previous slide, I have told you that you know, the electromagnetic interoperability is an issue. I'm not going to go in details because this is not a disputed issue. This is the issue that has been supported with the evidence. You may not have two different entities working on the same frequencies, for instance. So this issue is closed. All we got to do is to somehow find a solution. Why? Because we've shared the situation that we have in Uzbekistan and what we have in transboundary regions, for instance. All we got to do is we need to make sure that we have to get rid of the negative impacts from each other. So this jeopardizes our practice and is impacting negatively on the performance. And actually, the question is what needs to be done. In my humble opinion, we have to actually intensify our activities in terms of the digital TV under the 700 band. And we got to use the additional channels. The comms guys know that we have certain technical requirements for each and every band, and we have the regional community called ESS, and in case if there is a shortage of channels, we may rely on additional channels, you know, and even If we are unable to find certain frequencies, we could perhaps, spend just very modest money in order to demonstrate how many frequencies we have under Geneva 06 agreement. And in Uzbekistan, for instance, 178 is not used at all. We have colossal numbers in terms of population, and it's impossible actually to cover the area. The rest of the area remains unused. So we got 373, and we have 424 channels. We don't have to concentrate ourselves only on the number of channels. It depends on the capacity, it depends on the current situation, and so on. Nevertheless, out of 429 is something that is good enough for Uzbekistan at the moment. But in the beginning, I think that we have to seek for bilateral and multilateral cooperation. In case if we manage to get together and unite all of the countries of Central Asia, that would be great for all of us. We will need to be supported by the neighbors, and I think that the practice has demonstrated us repeatedly that without the conjoint efforts and integration, it is not possible for us to develop ourselves. And the region is going to be lagging behind without the integrated interaction and cooperation. In terms of the technical parameters, in terms of references, we might be in need of changing some of the requirements. Perhaps we need to look in more details into the international standards. So the high band and the mid band, the figures are demonstrated on the screen. Actually, 2 years ago we completed those works, and we have set 3 over 1,000 megahertz. And why did we manage to have it all smoothly? Because we didn't use the fixed satellite services and distribution of digital TV. The clients would not use the digital TV, and at the moment we've been working on the issue of legal nature. Actually, we have to synchronize the usage, and I think that you will also need to decide whether to divide the country in accordance with the territorial balances, or so those are the basic channels that you could see on the screen, and the tendency is that there's a growth. And we have also been dealing with the issue. In October of 2023, it is expected that the region is going to be upgrading its comms status. So I'm not going into the details in terms of the assessment. So the results of the testing have been demonstrated in segment outdoor, and over here you could see the IN and IDLS, and the great results have been received accordingly, and there's have been an active sharing practices amongst the operators in Uzbekistan, and this is something that we are very proud of. And there's certainly a possibility to use 6 the 6th band, as we said, and the question is what our operator is going to be choosing, whether the way out is to be licensed for local Wi-Fi. You know that Wi-Fi version 6 and version 7 are under development. As a regulator, the ministry has to take into account the user's needs, so therefore the position is not clear. We have some time to think. Thank you so much for your attention. And in the end, what I'd like to say is that this issue will be kept discussed in Samarkand. So please join our large-scale forum. We will have our session presented on October 28th. So please come. Samarkand is known for its history. Thank you. Thank you very much, Dilmurod Dusmatov. You had a very interesting and extensive presentation, and you've raised very important issues. And now we are going to be having the most expected presentation of the day. So what is going on in terms of the spectrum in Kazakhstan? What are we going to see in the future? Perhaps we won't have the full information about what's going to be happening actually, but we will have a chance to glance at it. And now I'm going to be inviting Chairman of our Space Committee, Mr. Miramov. Dear colleagues and guests of the forum, I would like to greet all of you in Digital Bridge 2022 forum. It became an instrument, and this is a common opinion that it has allowed us to serve as a breakthrough in the area of interest. I have prepared a presentation in terms of what the regulator has been doing so far in order to ensure the full coverage with 5G networks. I will start with the international practice and statistics, and then I will talk about the Kazakhstani case and brief you about what policy Kazakhstan is going to be having in this area. So this slide was discussed by the representative from GSMA. In accordance with GSMA, worldwide, the impact from the development of the networks is going to be over 960 billion US by 2030, and 5G will be mostly demanded in services and by industry. And the comms operators do have a chance to enhance their financial performances in our RPU. This slide demonstrates the general trends and indicators in terms of how many networks we have and what is the global population of 5G, the number of basic stations. And what's interesting is that 85% of frequencies are mid-band frequencies, which is very interesting. And there's also a very considerable fact is that 99 countries have more than one operator to develop the mid-band, and it actually leads to a speedy development of networks. And now I'm going to be commenting about the introduction of 5G in Kazakhstan. In accordance with the national plan of innovation, we plan to launch 5G before the end of 2022, Astana, Almaty, Shymkent, and in 2023 in regional centers. Back in 2019-2020, 3 mobile operators have made testing in Astana, Almaty, and Shymkent, and the regulator has amended the law on communications. This is the industry law that regulates this sector. as well as we have amended the rules on distribution of frequencies, and we have regulated the auctions. It is a regular English method of auctioning, and by the end of this year, we've discussed having an opportunity. We've discussed it with the operators, what types of auction obligations they will be having, and by the end of this year, we plan to have the auction organized, and we will have 2 lots provided in 3.6 and 3.8 megahertz.
And here we have the bandwidth bands in the regions and cities and oblasts. And the first one, there is this partial employment. The first lot is occupied, is free for 83%, and the second one, 93%. And we suppose, as the conditions of the auction, the regulator takes the obligations and liabilities that the whole that we sell. But after taking the amendments and accepting this, and after reforming, then we will provide the whole lot, 100 megahertz band. So you can see what kind of tasks we have already done, these 2 lots. And I would like to mention about some plans, to mention some aspects about the plans. That the first one, it will be the frequencies, 600, and then 500, and after working with the spectrum 700, which will be given to the auction, and then frequencies 600, which was mentioned before me, and these frequencies will be realized by means of the auction. That's the way how we plan to provide the whole spectrum, the set of those frequencies that is necessary for the network operators, for the efficient and not that cost efficient from point of view of CAPEX, and providing these resource frequencies. And in general, I would like to mention that we have agreed with 3 operators. We have agreed on the aspects of launching and having the auction. After signing the memorandum, we have identified the locations, 5 locations in each city: Almaty, Astana, and Shymkent. We expect that by the end of the year, we will launch and we will start this 5G in these 3 cities. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Meyramov. It was really interesting. Now we know that we have this 3 C-band, 700 to 60, and it's really reasonable. And I really hope that this year the Kazakhstani people will be able to use this commercial network 5G in a full manner. And we are going to continue, and then we'll go again with Spectrum. We have the General Director of Consulting, Koliaga Consulting, which is specialized in this sphere. I would like to give the floor to General Director, to Mr. Stefan Zelle.
Hello and good afternoon. I'm going to talk about spectrum pricing. You just heard there's an auction in many countries assign spectrum by auction. So spectrum pricing is important and it can make or break the 5G momentum. But there's also another aspect which is the amount of spectrum that is available to mobile operators for 5G. Now, let's remind ourselves what's the difference between 4G and 5G. This is also referred to as IMT 2020 and as defined by the ITU. There are two aspects which are particularly relevant for spectrum needs. And that is the user experience data rate, which 5G must deliver, 100 megabits in the downlink and 50 in the uplink. And that's a tenfold increase compared to 4G. And then we have the area traffic capacity. That is how much traffic can squeeze into an area without people experiencing congestion or delay. And that's a 100-fold increase. And so IMT 2020 is expected to provide a user experience matching that as close as possible of fixed networks. And of course, that readily tells you that 5G is very different from 4G. 4G can be thought of as a best effort data service. Operators are selling data volume measured in gigabytes. But with 5G, what we're already seeing is unlimited data. And that's, of course, like fixed broadbands, like fiber networks. You're not paying for volume, you're paying for speed. So if operators are selling a user experience, they must deliver a user experience. Now, how can they do that? They can only do that if they have additional spectrum. That is the lifeblood of the industry. And a particular upper mid-band spectrum, we already heard it. We heard talk about the C-band, which is going to be auctioned here, 3.4 to 3.8, but also additional spectrum resources will be required. And then also sub 1 gigahertz spectrum, the 700 and even 600. So operators need more and more spectrum. They have to deploy it to deliver this. Today, in most of your countries, there's relatively little spectrum available to mobile operators compared, say, to some other countries in Western Europe, the United States, and so on. And that is a real problem for operators here. But over time, of course, more spectrum will be made available, but there's a problem. And the problem is already apparent historically. Mobile operator revenue is increasing. Now it's not increasing that much, but the amount of spectrum required to produce that revenue is increasing far faster. So the revenue per megahertz of spectrum deployed is declining very sharply. And you can already see if each additional megahertz produces less and less revenue or no revenue, it is very, very difficult to pay a lot of money for spectrum license fees. Something is going to break. And some figures here from the Ericsson mobility report, the growth in traffic over the next few years, 22%, whereas revenue is maybe in real terms not growing at all, in some places by 5% due to some new applications such as IoT. But you can see there's a problem, isn't there? My revenue isn't really increasing very much, and yet the traffic is increasing hugely. I need to invest, I need to build sites, I need more spectrum, and any businessman can readily appreciate that is a problem. And it's a problem because of return on investment. What is return on investment? Quite simply, it's profit divided by capital employed. And capital employed, I need capital both to build the network, so these are investment in tangible fixed assets, as well as spectrum licenses, so intangible fixed asset. And as you can see, the bigger you make the capital employed, whilst profits remain the same, the return on investment is going down, and you have a problem because there is no investment to really fully invest in 5G. And the European Commission realized there was a problem because in the European Union, which is a fairly homogeneous area, the way governments assign spectrum varies an awful lot. And what that shows, what we show you here, is the annualized cost of spectrum. This is upfront license fees converted into an annualized equivalent using an annuity formula as a percentage of total mobile operator revenue in those countries. And you can see it ranges from a mere 1% in places like Finland to a shocking 17% in Hungary. So what people are paying for in Hungary through their bills, they're paying an awful lot for spectrum license fees. Now, does that matter? Does that matter? That is really the question, isn't it? So how do you work out in your country not to get to a situation where these fees are too high? It's very simple. You look at the upfront fees paid in the past. You convert these into an annualized equivalent using an annuity formula. You add any other spectrum-related costs. And then you ask yourself, fine, how much for the new spectrum? What is sustainable? You work out what percentage you come out at. Are you going to be closer to Finland or closer to Germany at 10% or closer to Hungary at 17%? Now, this is a lot to cover here. All of this information is contained in a report. You can send me an email, I send it to you, or you can simply go to the Colliago website and download the report about sustainable spectrum pricing. So it's a highly relevant topic for 5G. Now I ask you, does that matter? On this chart, you're seeing on the horizontal axis the same data you saw before on the bar chart. So you see the 13 countries and you see the annualized cost of spectrum as a percentage of mobile operator revenue. That's on the horizontal. On the vertical, you see the data consumption. That's the data usage, mobile data usage in gigabytes per month per capita. And you can see those countries that have low spectrum license fees have a very high consumption. And what is spectrum for? What is it for? You want to address, or you want to extract the highest socioeconomic benefit for your population. And spectrum is, of course, used to pass traffic through it. So you could say the amount of data traffic is a proxy for the socioeconomic value extracted from spectrum. And you can see that Finland extracts far more socioeconomic value from spectrum compared to Germany. And the coefficient of correlation here is 68%. Admittedly, it's a small sample, but nevertheless, I think this is pretty compelling evidence that low spectrum license fees result in better outcomes for consumers and business users. And here's a very practical way of looking at this. This is unlimited data plans for 5G, Finland versus Germany. Now remember, Finland, cost of spectrum 1% of revenue, Germany 10%. This is ELISA in Finland, unlimited, 31.90 per month. Germany, the same thing, a shocking 166% more expensive. The cost of spectrum is 10%. Now, hands up, I'm conducting a quick poll now. Who prefers the pricing in Finland? Yeah, I think we all do. So, and I don't think there's any country or any population which doesn't think that way. And let's look at it another way. In Germany, they're still selling 5G 6 gigabytes, okay? 39.95. That's more expensive than the unlimited in Finland. Now, 39.95 for 6 gigabyte 5G. Remember 5G, 100 megabits? Now, let's just assume somebody is streaming at 20 megabits. You can convert that, if they're streaming at 20 megabits, you convert that into volume. And if you work it out, you can use up that 6 gigabytes in 40 minutes. That's 1.33 minutes of 5G a day. What's the point, quite frankly? And you can see it really doesn't make sense to sell 5G by volume. It needs to be sold by the user experience. And so operators' spectrum costs and network costs must be low enough to be able to offer services as a price point that looks more like Finland compared to, or rather than, Germany. Of course, spectrum pricing is only one ingredient. The other ingredient is the amount of spectrum. The more spectrum is available and the wider the channel, the lower the cost of producing the mobile bandwidth. And this is for a report which Coliago did for the GSMA. It was already mentioned here previously by the opening speaker. You can download the report from the Coliago website, and you can see the amount of mid-band spectrum that is required to cope with that amount of spectrum is quite large. So at the lower end, we're talking about 1,000 megahertz. At the higher end, 3,600. This is for very dense places like Shanghai, Moscow, something like that. But also in some parts of the cities in your countries. Now, where do you find that spectrum? We already talked about WRC 23. That's only next year, and I'm talking about spectrum needs in the 2025 to 2030 time frame. You can say, oh, okay, there's time to wait. Not really, because with spectrum, you have to think ahead 5 to 10 years. So WRC 23, remember the next one is only in 27, that's too late. So in 23, the die will be cast for make or break 5G. So making that additional mid-band available here, in 6.425 to 7.025 and 7.25 to 7.125, that is really the sweet spot for the future, for the ability of mobile operator to deliver true 5G as a sort of price point that makes it affordable to consumers and businesses. And with that, I end my presentation. Thank you very much. Oh no, I have one more point. Sorry, I forgot about my closing slide. So, of course, there's always a Ministry of Finance that wants money. And I would say to them, low spectrum license fees are not a loss to the state, but an investment in the digital future of your countries. And I don't know whether some of you were here earlier. There was some sort of award, all these digital innovators. And can you see the enthusiasm of the young generation? And in a sense, this event here is a commitment to the digital future of Kazakhstan. So it's really about the young people here. So making the spectrum available at a reasonable cost in large quantity, because 5G will be the glue for the digital transformation of your countries, and large amount of mid-band spectrum at a reasonable price are required to realize that vision. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stefan, for the improvement. Спасибо большое, Stefan, за, казалось бы, такое.
Thank you so much for almost this scientific evidence for this approval. The more operator spends on licenses, the less capex they have for the network. The worse the network, the higher prices in order to hold the traffic flow. Very interesting facts, amazing, fantastic that you understand it empirically speaking, and now it is proved on the figure-based. Okay, let's move on with 5G. When we talk about 5G, usually we talk about China, how well it's being developed in China. We're speaking about Western Europe. We're talking about the US, and Huawei usually criticizes because you're talking about some spaceships, some rocket science. Let's get closer to our life. There is a country which is close to Kazakhstan and speaking about GDP per capita, but financially similar. That is Thailand. This is the developing country that has achieved great results and success, and that is the reason why we have invited to our forum Deputy. Oh, not deputy. The executive director of Bureau of License and Telecom Business, the National Committee of Telecommunications and the Radio Broadcasting of Thailand, Ms. Titon. It will be online.
Of NBTC. It's my honor to be here as assigned by Deputy Secretary General of the Office of NBTC to be a speaker here for International Forum on Digital Technology, Business and IT Digital Bridge 2020 in Astana via online platform. My name is Titanan and I serve as an Executive Director of the Office of NBTC. In this regard, I am pleased to delight to be the part of mini forums where there will be a new opportunity to collaboration and challenge to draw out innovation and cutting-edge technology to apply for digital transformation in every smart city worldwide. Let's start with the IMT Spectrum Roadmap. NBTC has a policy objective to promote efficient use of spectrum and enabling the framework for new technology investment. The goal corresponds to the government scheme for driving digital economy. In 2019, NBTC has announced the 5-year spectrum roadmap as a guideline for stakeholders. The roadmap highlights initial timeframe for planning and preparing for the spectrum auction. For the 5G first wave, 700 MHz, 1800 MHz, 2600 MHz, and 26 GHz put out for auction in 2020. We were successful in auctioning process and award license to the mobile operator. The second phase of the roadmap, NBTC set up the working group responsible for preparing to release 3.5 spectrum. That consists of 3 stages: planning and decision, implementation, and award spectrum. In this slide, show that we have conducted a study on how we can better use the spectrum between MT and satellite in Thailand. We focus on 2 bands. One is 3.5 GHz and another is 28 GHz band. What we first see is how we can better achieve the spectrum used in 3.5 GHz and 28 GHz band in terms of whether we need a guard band or other mechanism to coexist between those 2 services. When the 5G first wave brought to the auction for the first time, there was no single best licensing approach. We considered the spectrum allocation policy objective, market condition, current spectrum use, market competitiveness, and investment promotion. We carefully and made decisions by taking into account a social and economic context and consult industry, aiming to reach the 5G benefit maximization. NBTC core principle for spectrum licensing focus on transparency and future certainty. We work in close partnership with the stakeholders to enable a timely, fair, and successful licensing process. We ensure technology and service neutral that will be enable the spectrum to be used efficiently by mobile operators to provide a service access for all. In this slide, I would like to share with you the optimal spectrum licensing strategy that enabling the technology innovation ecosystem. We recognize the challenge investment in telecom industry and a shorter technology life cycle. Therefore, NBTC is setting incentive policy to increase the availability, network rollout, and penetration and use of 5G service. We carefully consider the live 5G spectrum term and condition. For example, we encourage the 5G infrastructure rollout by setting the criteria for MNO to roll out in ECC and smart city, and relax the payment term if the operator build the 5G network covering the key economic areas. The obligation and commitments are the result of our shared vision and collaborative effort undertaken by all stakeholders. I would like to highlight the mobile and fixed broadband overview in Thailand. First, 5G coverage in Bangkok has reached 99% and almost 80% for the nationwide. The total of the spectrum that has been allocated is 3,220 megahertz. Second, the mobile broadband speed in Thailand is about global average, which is 73 to 75 megabit per second. For the fixed broadband coverage, it is currently cover about 75,000 villages. Finally, broadband affordability in Thailand is still slightly above 2% for both mobile and fixed broadband. Therefore, we are aiming to improve in this index to make sure that the citizens have affordable broadband price. In this part, I would like to highlight our supportive policy to promote digital transformation and 5G ecosystem. The nature of the 5G service requires that we emphasize on strengthening the value added of our telecommunication networks. Therefore, transform toward 5G ecosystem couldn't be effort of individual firm alone. We need to focus on creating the 5G ecosystem with active collaboration from the wide range of stakeholders. The key question is how we can accelerate the digital ecosystem development. In 2019, we announced the regulatory sandbox to accommodate provision of the telecom service, which leverage new technologies. It's open for telecom operators, vendors, universities to participate in equipment and service testing. Adopting a new technology in a live environment within the limited well-defined scope, the sandbox will be granted for R&D and pre-commercialization purpose, but not for business operations. We also promote the 5G pilot project to ensure the maturity of promote digital economy system. To do this, NBTC, in collaboration with the Central Bank of Thailand, examine the potential demand index in each sector together with the economic impact index and the related for 5G adoption index. It was seen that demand is very important for the 5G adoption. The result was analyzed and reflected in the bubble quadrant graph that the size of the bubble shows the number of people expect to be impacted by the 5G. It is found that health and manufacturing sector in the green area are the most ready for 5G adoption. It's likely that 5G will bring the large amount of economic benefit by means of economic value added. And the number of people expect to be impacted. The study is building block for the 5G pilot project. The study on the global 5G coverage and adoption showed that the 5G covered 22% of the population in 2022 and rise to 34% in the next 4 years within 1.1 billion connections. Office of NBTC estimated the economic impact of 5G in Thailand, and it showed that 5G will drive economic growth and contribute to 3.1% of GDP on nearly 3,100 million baht due to the investment value, multiplier, and economic value added. Among other factors is what increased by the telecom investment during 2020 and 2022 because of the two factors. First, increase of telecom network expansion according to the spectrum auction condition regarding the network provision. And second, increase of internet use during the COVID-19 pandemic period. At national level, Thailand has set up the 5G committee aimed to promote the 5G pilot project and enable the digital ecosystem. 5G committee consists of representatives from many key ministries and related agencies. The 5G use case for vertical preparedly joined with the Thai operator and industry partner is comprised of a 9 outstanding examples of 5G empowered application for 7 verticals, such as smart hospital, smart farming, smart factory, and we would like to see the application scenario and lesson learned and the project outcome, which will inspire the journey to empower more vertical industry with 5G, in particular upcoming large scale of 5G adoption, both in Thailand and globally. I would like to share with you 5G use case example, which promoted by the Thailand 5G Commission. This one is a Smart Hospital, Siriraj, the top hospital in Thailand, to strive to develop smart hospital by fully utilize the 5G and AI technology in the various applications such as smart emergency system, smart diagnostic, smart pharmacy inventory, and 5G unmanned vehicle. The commitment led the medical team and relevant party, including operators and vendors, to successfully join with the Mobile World Congress in Barcelona to showcase the best 5G application from Thailand. It was regarded as a blueprint for the other smart hospitals in the country that and the global level. We see that the proof of the concept of the pilot project is an opportunity to demonstrate the capability of 5G and related technology for vertical industry or agency to apply the principle and best practice of pilot project to answer whether the solution should be deployed agency-wide. We would like to see the application and lesson learned and the outcome of project will be inspired the journey to empower with the 5G. I would like to share with you our views on key challenge and way forward to the 5G era. The first one is spectrum availability. According to the GSMA, 80 to 100 megahertz of the spectrum in 5G core mid bands and 1 gigahertz in 5G high bands should be made available for each operator. Second, real commercial 5G use case and application to cooperation among the stakeholders. At last, 5G enable ecosystem regulation that facilitate the 5G related innovation and development and promote cybersecurity. In the world of 5G, strengthening the value added our fifth generation network is crucial for a small economy like Thailand, and it needs to be done so that our network remain robust and efficient, fostering an ecosystem conducive to innovation and competition. The nature of 5G service requires that we emphasize on strengthening the value added of our telecommunication networks. Therefore, as a regulator, we see that the 5G ecosystem development need active collaboration and facilitate regulations. I hope that this session would be a good opportunity for us to exchange our views on practice in 5G promotion and way forward that will lead to digital transformation and fulfill the better ecosystem. I hope that Thailand experience can more or less inspire other countries in forward-thinking initiatives to pave the way for 5G still Lord. And thank you so much for your attention.
Ратанасаньян Упхап, for your very interesting presentation. Действительно очень интересно, когда
So it is very interesting because it is rather interesting when the country has decided to become just a tourist center and IT hub for its region. And as we can see, it works. Now that's the time to enter the era 5G. And how to do this, the vice president of Huawei will tell us about who came from Shenzhen, from our headquarters, who knows everything about 5G and infrastructure of 5G. Mr. Chen Chuanfei, Director of Huawei Strategy Business Development.
I'm very happy to be to join you in this forum. Today, I would like to share the latest progress of the industry global level. The speakers before my presentation has drawn a whole picture of what's happening worldwide in 5G era. Not only the network part, but also the business part, especially talking about the strategy of different regions worldwide and of the spectrum. So in my slides, I want to a little bit go to more details about what's happening with the pioneer operators. Based on our analysis of the business report of this pioneer operators, we have three key findings, could be linked to three keywords. The first one is 10%. The average leading operators, the pioneer operators, they are a 5G subscriber. The every number increased 10%. This is a worldwide average number. So the first keyword, 10%. The second word is 10 gigabyte. This is a DOU. So we can see worldwide, if the operator of their DOU is more than 10 gigabytes per month, then most probably they will have not only 5G network success, but also the business success. The third one is very important, is about the business. So from the day one of the 5G network deployment, the pioneer operators, more than 40% of the operators, they are launching their business not only based on 2C traditional consumer-based business, but also FW fixed wireless access network. FW services is not a new thing, it is no new one. We introduced this kind of services already in 4G era, but we all know based on the limited capacity of the 4G technology and 4G network, it's easy to exploit in one sector several subscribers, for example, 20, 30, but if it's up to 100, the capacity is not enough. We will reaching the limitation. So, but in 5G era, by introduce new technology such as massive MIMO technology and with bandwidth, with a basic bandwidth from 100, we can have 10 times capacity gain compared to the live network, our 4G network. So we have enough capacity to provide FWA services. So this is three key findings. Pioneer operator, 10% subscriber up increase after we can make the subscriber upgrade their package from 4G to 5G. The second word is 10 gigabyte, the DOU. The third one is FWA services. So here in Kazakhstan, our DOU, the average number is 20 already. And also our in live network, our 5G terminal penetration is already nearly 10%. So it's a right time for us to talk about not only the readiness of our spectrum, but also the business of our the 5G era. So based on the huge capacity capability and also low latency features, some other features of 5G bring to us, the pioneer operators, they are launching their business in different sectors, both to C, to B, and to H. So in 2C sector, the South Korea LGU Plus case is very, very interesting. Based on the nationwide continuous coverage of their massive MIMO-based 5G network, and now they are extending the network from the basic configuration 32 TX. It's more technical, but it's a very important configuration for 5G solutions to the next generation 46 transceiver and receiver. And also they are thinking to further extend the network capacity, especially in the hotspot, by deploying massive millimeter wave. So based on this basic nationwide coverage, large capacity network, so that they try to involve more content partners to their network. Not only the traditional radio and high definition radio, but also AR, VR, this kind of services. Right now in their network, more than 60% of 5G subscribers already experienced VR, AR services. And 20% of their 5G subscribers buy extra package. For each package, $1 US. So this helps the customer increase their app for this kind of service introduction. And based on the successful introduction of AR, VR in the traditional consumer-based business, they are trying to introduce this 5G plus AR combination, commercialization from the consumer-based to B market. Now they are on the way to exploring these kind of opportunities. We can foresee by introducing this very interesting AR, VR services, they will most probably will be success in this different sector of the industry. And at the same time, set a network experience benchmark is another key for this operator, for LTU Plus. They set 100 megabit per second as a basic, as a benchmark. It's not the average speed, but also the edge, the cell edge speed. So it's a nationwide user experience benchmark. If we talking about the two FWA services, so at the first page, I took a lot of time to talk about, because when I tried to learn what's happening in 5G era in FWA services, I saw a lot of interesting things. So when we talk about FWA services in 5G era, the then Saudi then is a case we have to try to learn what's the experience behind their success. So let's go to the result of their introduction of the FWA services. Every 5G FWA subscriber, they are up compared to the consumer 4G subscriber, 80% more up they can capture from this subscriber. And by doing so how they can capture these high value, high up subscriber, FWA subscribers. The main reason is they have a very good network. The average downlink speed, 5G user experience speed could be 250. So this is why they can release their own FWA services brand. They call it fiber line, air fiber. So now they are continue to work with the partners. So more and more new type of terminals, CPEs, for all those CPE, indoor CPE, different, it's a whole portfolio, high end, middle end, and low end, with different package of FWA services. So we can see the data. So from the large scale commercial launch of these FWA services, then Saudi then their revenue as well as especially the profit increase very much. So and it's on the right way, continue to increase. So this is a case in Saudi by the FWA services and 2H services. And next one is to be. So speaker, the Thailand lady, are also talking about this topic. To be honest, by introduced the slicing technology, ultra low latency technology, super uplink technology, the 5G network has this capability to fulfill requirement of different sector of vertical industry. But to be honest, the process is not as we expected. So we takes the industry, the whole industry. It takes us more than 2 or 3 years to do a lot of tests, trials, and in the different small scale commercial network deployment in different industry. For example, in hospital, just the Thailand lady mentioned, and also manufacturing, mining. In different countries, they have different cases. But good news for us is, to the end of this year, the 5G will be introduced in more than 20 industry, and also there are more than 10,000 use cases is now running. So we can foresee, especially by the end of this month, we will have a turning point for 5G to be. That is red cap. We all know currently the 5G communication module, the cost is just like our terminal. It's more than $150 US per module. So that's why we can only do trial, small scale deployment, because the terminal is too costly. But with the introduction of red cap, a new type of, based on 3GPP, a new type of communication module, the cost of this module is only around 20 to 30 US dollars. So by introducing this cost-efficient terminal, I think communication module, the 5G could be expected, the booming era. If we talk about, because I'm most of my time in Huawei, more than 20 years working in R&D sector. So I more would like to talk about 5G network. So if we just consider 5G network as a human body, so we are thinking 3GPP, the unified standard is our legs and arms. So we have to we have a unified standard to cooperate each other. Then we can walk and working, right? Then spectrum is a heart. It's the engine. Without spectrum, we can do nothing. Even we have the best technology, very aggressive business plan, but spectrum is a trick to push us to moving forward. And so what about our bones? So we are thinking the architecture. So which kind of architecture are you choosing for the 5G kickoff, and when your network is mature enough, how to evaluate your network to further enhanced network architecture? And what's the skin of the 5G network? So we are thinking user experience. But as an end user, we are experiencing the way we contact with a mobile operator is the data speed, right? The latency of the access to the internet. So the skin is the user experience. So this is my understanding of how to describe a 5G network. What's the best 5G network? A unified protocol, the heart of the spectrum strategy, and also a strong bone and beautiful, beautiful skin, right? Okay, so let's quickly go through this full part. So regarding spectrum, the colleagues before speakers already talked about this topic. So one thing I want to emphasize is now we are talking about 5G large-scale deployment. In some pioneer operator market, they have their 5G large-scale deployment already 4 years. For example, in China, they have more than 3 million physical base stations already. So more than 500 million 5G subscribers. But in different region, different country, the story is different. But anyway, all of the world, we are on the way to 5G era. But take 3.5G as an example. This spectrum, the industry started the discussion with this spectrum. What's the role of this spectrum in the IMT industry from the year 2000? That's the year I just graduated from my university. Then 2007, the ITU marked this spectrum as IMT industry, IMT spectrum. Then 15 years passed. So today here we are talking about deployment of 3.5 gigahertz. So after 3.5, 2.6, and 2.3, this kind of spectrum already marked, identified in the ITU. So what's the next? So just now Stefan mentioned already, and also Iran mentioned, the 6 gigahertz. Now the industry is and also a lot of discussion about this spectrum. So most probably to the end of in November last year and next year, VAC 23, the industry will decide whether to let this spectrum as IMT spectrum or as other technology. But the criteria to define is to decide is what's the most efficient way to the national level efficiency, economy efficiency. Okay, after so we have 3GPP as arms, legs, and we have spectrum strategy. Then let's go back to the bones, right? So the architecture, if we look at the average number and also the penetration of the worldwide pioneer operators, the majority is most of the operators, they start their 5G deployment start from non-standalone. So there are many reasons for these operators to choose NSA as kickoff. But from my personal, I think there are 2 main reasons. The first one is smooth user experience evolution. For example, take voice as example. If we choose NSA, so user experience, call waiting time, is similar to 4G era, 4 to 5 seconds if you enable VoLTE technology. But if you enable SA as a kickoff, it will take you more than 10 seconds. It could be acceptable. Another thing I think is very important is the timeline. So by deploying NSA, it is only a very minor upgrade in the core network part. But we can only focus on the terminal side, terminal part, and a base station. But if we deploy IC, we need to completely deploy a new type of new hardware, new software, new core network solution. So by introduce NSA architecture, the operators can very fast to introduce a 5G network to their network. So next, let's go to the scan. So it's mainly driven by the new kind of services, especially consumer-based services. So we all know that the new, the high definition, high dynamic range, and high definition ratio content, and also the speed. I mean, the fast speed fast read play is a new style of young generations. So my daughter, when he play video, usually use 1.5 times, but sometimes 2 times. It's very difficult for the using method. So by doing so, we need a gigabit per second user experience. But nationally, ITU and NGMN already introduced a benchmark, a criteria, but is set 100 as a cell edge. Cell edge, that means a minimum user experience as downlink. But as for the uplink, different association, they have different idea. But the minimum number, right now the majority is 5 megabits per second as the cell edge uplink user experience benchmark. So this is what kind of which kind of 5G network we want to experience. What's the requirement for the end user level? So when we talk about 5G, people are thinking, so 5G is so hot topic in the past 5 years in this ICT industry. So what's the secret of 5G? So I think, in my opinion, especially from R&D point of view, 2 of them is very important. Of course, 5G, we introduced so many new technologies, but 2 of them is very important. The first one is bandwidth, the spectrum bandwidth. Start from 100, 5 times compared to the 4G era. This the first one, 5 times, remember. The second thing is multi-MIMO technology. This technology can 3 to 5 times the capacity compared to the traditional configuration in 4G era. So 3 times 5 times. So 5G can bring 10 times capacity compared to the 4G era. Benefit from our long-term huge investment in R&D sector, and also especially the joint innovation with our customer, the mobile operators. Huawei is now continue the leading contribution in 3GPP, and also honor on us to be invited and to be to involve in Kazakhstan ICT hub strategy. So we will continue our effort to fully support, to contribute our solution, our technical skills to join in the Kazakhstan ICT hub strategy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chen Fei. Ну что же, у нас
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be having a very short coffee break. How much time do we have? 15 minutes. 15 minutes, please. And then after that, we will have a panel discussion.
Здравствуйте, здравствуйте, здравствуйте. Да, Игорь Акулинин. О, я, оказывается, выключить надо сейчас. Раз. А выключите?
Да, открой, пожалуйста, все. Так примерно и направлены. Раз, два, три, четыре, пять, шесть.
Дорогие коллеги,
Dear colleagues, the coffee break is over. However, we have some slots. We have a short time for a short video, please. This is going to be the culmination of our panel session. Please enjoy.
До капель воды на ветру, до бушующих рек. Течение жизни стремительно меняется. С ростом интеллектуальных подключений 5G продолжает вести волну перемен. Чтобы разнообразить нашу жизнь, открыть новый уровень интеллектуальных технологий для бизнеса и сделать сложное простым. 5G уже здесь. Он приносит нам повсеместные подключения. Искусственный интеллект открывает бесконечные возможности и оптимизирует потребление энергии. Упрощает эксплуатацию и техническое обслуживание. Искусственный интеллект будет доступен каждому. Инновации выведут качество жизни на новый уровень. Подключая неподключенных, преодолевая цифровую пропасть, воплощая в жизнь невообразимое, стирая все границы, выводя рост бизнеса на новые вершины. Пришло время действовать. Давайте все вместе воспользуемся этими возможностями, чтобы создать лучшее будущее, предоставляя цифровые технологии каждому человеку, дому и организации в полностью подключенной и интеллектуальной Евразии. 5G на шелковом пути.
да, и что же, объявляю.
And now I'm going to open our panel session. So we have the representative of GSMA, Director for Eurasia, Tahir Ismailov. Good evening. Thank you for those who have been with us until the very end. It's been fascinating. We had consulting agencies, the representatives of the regulator, but we haven't asked the mobile operators. And the next session is going to be devoted to the operators. We will listen to the operators together with the regulator and with the representative from Huawei. And I would like to invite to the stage Mr. Yerzhan Miramov, who is the chairman of the Communications Committee of the Ministry of Innovations and Space Industry, Evgeny Rasratin, the General Director CEO of Beeline, and Ashat Uzbekov, CEO Kesel, Mr. Konkov, General Director Tele2, and Igor Akuninin, Huawei Eurasia. Please, the floor is yours, gentlemen. So let's start. I wanted to start with a basic question. Why do we need 5G? The state actually, if we look at 3G and LTE, it would take up to 3 years. So since the first document got adopted, the technology would up to be 10% of the global market. So 5G started in 2017, and in 2024 we expect a very serious penetration and deployment. And many countries have tried different technologies, and the regulators have been motivating the development of the standard. So, Yerzhan, how do you see the development of the standard in Kazakhstan, and what impact is it going to be having in the economy of Kazakhstan, please? Well, as far as we all know, 5G is a new generation of mobile communications. And first of all, the difference is that it has high speed and very low level of delays. And this technology are giving us an opportunity to ensure the transfer, a smoother transfer to Industry 4.0, and a chance to implement and use different technologies, Internet of Things, IG, AR, PR, and so on. And there have been lots of discussions of different natures, to include the discussions coming from the operators saying that there is no standard, economically it is not going to be viable. And having understood that from the operator, the major motive is commercial pragmatism, let's call it that way. But the regulators still think, they are sure actually, that in case if we don't keep up with 5G development, we might not keep up with the overall technology development. So 5G provides you with a chance to actually develop all the other layers of the industries. And worldwide, in a global scale, there are some political and geopolitical issues related to the 5G. And we're pretty sure that 5G is going to give for Kazakhstan a great impetus. You know that we have instructions in terms of expedited digitalization, and what our president has said today affirms what I've just said about 5G is going to move forward the boosting of digitalization and overall digital technologies in Kazakhstan. Thank you so much, Yerzhan. Yes, everybody, today we're speaking about the high level of digitalization in Kazakhstan. Evgeny, would you please tell us, could you please share the cases of this technology and what are going to be the sectors to have the first pioneer projects? I would like to continue a deaf and blind dialogue with the regulator that I had in my head, you know, and the major question that I wanted to address is, why do we need 5G? Why does state need 5G? Why do operators need 5G? And you've seen today a lot of colorful cartoons, video clips saying to us about the benefits to the society. And among those nice clips, I would suggest us all to remember, to visualize a picture, you know, having a tower, a mast, with antennas, you know, and that beauty actually has its uniqueness. As mobile operators, we deal with this part. We deal with installation of masts, you know. To purchase the 5G devices and to mount them in any given location is something that we've been dealing with for the last 20/25 years. And of course, it goes without saying that for us, a mechanical, a technological side of the issue called deployment of 5G is simple and crystal clear. This is something that we do on a daily basis. However, what comes next is the question to be addressed to the clients. When are you going to be using 5G? In what cases? And in order to purchase those devices, to have them installed, we need to A, spend a lot of money, B, without having a very, very important transformation in regulation, it is going to be almost not possible. When I speak about the transformation of regulation, what I mean is setting up the conditions for the construction, right? And they say that each and every facility is to have the mast. But the mobile operators, ask more additional questions. How realistic is that? And again, now let me bring you to where I see 5G being applied. Let's go back to the root causes. 5G is high speed, 5G is low delay, 5G at the same time is a lot of devices being simultaneously connected to the mast or to the site per square kilometer. Firstly, what I see here is that it's not going to work in B2C. It's not going to be good to go for physical entities because of very simple reasons. You know, this layer of society is not going to understand whether they're using 4G or 5G. However, B2B is going to be the segment to be tackled. Polygons, minings, oil and gas, with huge moving devices, and you gotta pick the information from all of those sensors. You need to process this information, store it somehow and somewhere, so that the owners of the business could get the very valuable tips. This is something that I believe is going to have a great deal of demand for this technology. B2C solutions is almost something that we have found evidences for. AFIA, fixed wireless access in theories potentially to be used, and something related with the virtual added value, and I'm pretty sure that that component is going to find its clients as well. Thank you so much. Well, you know, virtual reality is the topic of discussions for ours as well, and it's sad that in some of the countries, you know, household have VR shield. You know, maybe it's good to go for South Korea. You know, maybe we will have more devices of this nature. And Igor, could you please tell us, based on Huawei's experience, what cases could you illustrate currently? What would you share? Over 80 countries have been using it, 200 operators worldwide, and I'd like to support Evgeny that yes, indeed, in many sectors, B2C, B2C, B2G, B2H, B2H actually is MWA, fixed wireless access through the wireless devices. If there is a prerequisites, for instance, B2H, is something closer to B2C and B2B2C. In the Philippines, it's almost not possible, actually, to have fibers. They have thousands of islands, and you know, 5G has entered the market, and they've been developing very, very well. And South Korea, you know, they love video, and B2C is thriving because of different types of video applications. You know, there's uniqueness to Korean economy. You know, all they produce is within Korea. You know, Korean culture, K-pop so-called, is very popular worldwide, right? Let's be honest, and they have perfect quality. You know, you may look at a screen. You know, Koreans love, you know, to have a chance to zoom out, you know, without losing quality. And this is something that Koreans love. You know, as far as I'm concerned, in the United States, B2C has been developed very, very well. Why? Because operators would construct 5G in 600 band, and you know, people just use it. B2B is Chinese experience, and Chinese experience is to promote 5G through the state policy. You know, China made it very clear. We want to be a digital leader. So let us negotiate with the business. Let us develop the anchor projects. There's always the first capex to be made. You know, everybody's kind of looking at the pioneers. However, the state of China tells the business community, don't be afraid, go for it. And China has been very, very successful. And today we've shared about the most successful cases and the number of those successful cases, which is immense. And we've also discussed that before, and every 10 years we get the new technologies. You know, LTEs perhaps work still well, you know, and in a couple of years, the question is whether you're going to have a basic station. You know, maybe it's not going to be economically expedient because 5G provides you with a low cost of data transmission per bit, per hertz. It uses spectrum much better, right? And the operator, you know, have dilemma. Why do I have to double my LTE capacity if I could have installed just one 5G, you know? And then I would have traffic, larger faults. And this is good to go for the most conservative operators. And in European Union, for instance, this is the practice that they've been using. They would construct one 5G station, you know, and they have low costs at the same time. I think I've responded. Yes, you've provided a very detailed question. However, going back to the previous standards of communications, there have always been a general application. It could be streaming, it could be mobilization of services, and so on. In 5G, there's no killer application like that. You know, however, we may actually comment the technological standard that could potentially become the killer application. Well, perhaps I will continue what my colleagues have said. You know, let me comment that from the operator's perspective. You know, the closest cases is WA and optimizing of construction, getting more capacity thanks to modern technologies is the case that already exists. And the second objective that we have as an operator is to provide transportation for new capabilities in other industries. And my previous colleagues talked a lot about different aspects. And they mentioned about healthcare, they mentioned about automation, calculations, Internet of Things, and so on. And it's important to understand that the demand Evgeny was speaking about comes either from the business or from the regulations of the industry. Operators may not construct the market. We may assist in building the infrastructure. We may provide our expertise. However, the demand is to come from the industries. And alongside with the demand and the request, there has to be an amendment to be done to the regulations. Let's take healthcare, for instance. There's a lot of amendments to be made into the laws of the Republic of Kazakhstan and healthcare regulations. And it's not the objective for those who are present here. We have to be communicating with the state, and within the state, we have to take additional steps forward in order to get those new cases and new skills. And in terms of the short horizon, we do see the potential in FWA. It's almost the cheap last mile and broad bandwidth in remote villages with inhabited places with low density, and we mentioned about this during the plenary session as well. You know, this is going to allow us to optimize the construction part. having made sure that the fiber goes directly to the site, and 5G in this regard has very, very high level of proficiency. On the top of what I've just said, the optimization of operators is use case, something that we do thoroughly understand from the business effect standpoint and so on. And it depends on what obligations we're going to be having, what commitments we will take within the framework of the auctions. So the wider commitments we're going to be having, the specifics of the cases will be formed and so on. You know, developing my hypothetical ideas is we could perhaps use 5G for cloud calculations and estimations. You know, we could have the processing capacity each and every time the device is getting more expensive. Why is it getting more expensive? Because the chips are in deficit, and the evolution of a single chip, you know, leads to larger prices, and we would charge a telephone once every 2 weeks. Now we have to charge a telephone twice a day. You know, it is related to the calculating capacity. And again, if we take it out and put it in the cloud, thanks to 5G and high speed of response, you know, the calculation could have been done elsewhere in the cloud, and this is gonna make the device less expensive and make the calculating part also less expensive. However, we need to engage those who produce chips, those who are dealing with the calculations, and so on and so forth. So the question is, how should we ensure the balance of business proficiency? And there's also a fantasy regarding the use case, you know, smart cities, healthcare, and so on. I won't repeat myself. Thank you. It's not as easy as we thought it could be. And now I'd like to ask Ashat. I think that Ashat is going to be more is going to have a more criticizing viewpoint. So how would you envisage the beginning of the construction of 5G? Is it going to be hotspots, like separate towns to pilot? Good evening, everyone. I'd like to develop the idea of the regulator and my colleagues from the industry. Yerzhan has mentioned about 2 spectrum of frequencies that so 200 megahertz based on economic parameters and the essence of our business. I think that we shouldn't be speaking about the total coverage. You know, we expect 5G hotspots. And Jambulat demonstrated actually the potential locations. You know, we were kind of surprised actually, but we're ready actually, Jambulat, and we will cover them, those spots. And in terms of the application, I'd like to support Evgeny. And I think that, first of all, 5G is to be where there's high density of population, the shopping malls, airports, railway stations, and I think that, again, that's from the client-centered approach. We've been speaking about the economics, but I would make a stress on the client, on the consumption. Yes, indeed, when it comes to physical entity segment, that constitutes the majority of our end users. Technically, they're not going to be feeling the difference in between 4G and 5G, but the question is that in crowded places, stadiums could be added to the crowded places. 5G is going to be considerably, making the quality better. You know, if you go to the sports match, you perhaps have noticed that you have 4G and then all of a sudden it gets 3G. And for mobile operators, private LTE could be a good use case. Private LTE, sorry, it's 4G, but private 5G could be an option actually. That could be a very nice reference of how 5G could be used. Actually, our colleagues already had the use cases in Thailand, and our colleagues from Saudi Arabia had the similar cases in China. You know, demonstrated those cases, and I think that before the moment when the regulator makes a decision regarding the auction for 200 megahertz, we cannot actually speak about the full coverage. It is not going to be economically expedient. And for ordinary people, you know, under 3.5 frequency, you know, the basic station has to be installed, you know, every 100 meters, you know. So every single building is to have this, those stations, you know. One out of 100 buildings will have the must, you know, because there's phobia in the society. And this is how I see the situation currently. And we're ready for the dialogue, and I'm going to be speaking on behalf of my company, and hopefully my colleagues are going to support me. We have to have a partner model of cooperation between the state and the operator in terms of regulation, in terms of how practically we may use 5G technology. And you asked Evgeny about the question. So as a citizen of Kazakhstan, I want to have 5G, the sooner the better. However, if we want just to have a signboard saying 5G and have 5G on our cell phones, I think that we may arrange that. But the question is that we gotta have an understanding, you know, why would we need that? You know, when we introduced 4G, our colleagues became pioneers in introduction of 4G, and right after 4G, we started developing e-commerce, e-banking, and so on and so forth. So we hope that currently it is a high moment, actually, and there is a high expectation from the society in Kazakhstan that we have to provide 5G, but nobody understands why do we need this. And if the society and the state expects us and even demand us to have 5G, I think such a expensive purchase is going to be a question, you know. But it will be of use for each and every citizen of Kazakhstan. Thank you. You've touched upon the spectrum issue. This is one of the hot topics related to 5G. We talked about different approaches, you know, where spectrum is being provided, you know, and my question is to the regulator, to the Yerzhan. We had a presentation that the regulator is ready to provide the frequencies, the bands. So what are going to be the conditions for the operator? So before responding to this question, in terms of the frequencies, what I'd like to say is the question regarding the attitude towards 5G. You know, our discussion has been built around the use cases, commercialization of technologies, and so on. I wanted to draw attention to the case that we have developed, that was developed in the United States and has been developed by now, for 4G networks, Horizon, AT&T, and they were the leaders, and T-Mobile was lagging behind. And at the moment, T-Mobile, as they've developed 5G quite well, the network coverage actually at T-Mobile has exponentially grown. Why am I saying this? You know, they don't have use cases. There's none in America or elsewhere. But overall, to have a look at it as an opportunity to change the business model. Business can actually get an impetus from 5G development, and commercially 5G could lead to expediency. And what I'd like to say is that those mobile operators that are lagging behind may succeed. Before the auction, actually, I'm heating up the interest, and I want you guys from the operators to participate. Actually, in terms of the frequencies, we looked at the international practice, and my colleagues have already briefed you about that. We've been moving forward. We haven't been inventing any bicycle, and we would use similar approaches, C-band, 500, 100 megahertz width. And the next step is going to be clearing up the 700 and we agreed that we are not going to be demanding total coverage until we provide the combination of those two frequencies. And then the next step forward would be to provide lots in 2,600. And actually, this is the plan that we're sticking to, and many countries actually have been following those steps. So this is briefly how the picture looks like. Clear, thank you. So the picture for the operators looks pretty favorable. And actually, the question is regarding the economics, is it worth it to make the sharing of networking? And how prepared the operators are? How do you see your cooperation in terms of industry development? This is the question that I want to address to Huawei and the other operators as well, please. The floor is yours. I may start actually from the sharing standpoint. Yes, indeed, we have the experience, a very rich experience of how to share information with the marketplace. We would construct the networks in remote areas, project 250 plus and other objectives that we have shared previously in terms of coverage, in terms of construction, and those were the projects that were not economically expedient for sole operators. So in those cases, we would approach our colleagues and we would share. And to be precise, we had and still are running a large project together with KCell in terms of optimizing LTE technology. And we've been the part of this project for couple of years, and yes, indeed, we have experience in this area. And I think that Tele2 may see we see a great deal of experience in having the joint projects. Yes, indeed, we've been the champions in terms of sharing. And, Kazakhstan is a unique country. The regulator made really unique things. Number one is providing allowances for sharing frequencies and networks. You're going to be surprised, but not all countries provide that. Number two is a unique project 250 plus, and GSMA made a reference. They made a separate slide. They said that this is a global reference for all global operators worldwide, right? And we're at home, we got used to these things, right? We got used to sharing, but those are two absolutely unique things. So putting those things together allowed us, actually, within a couple of years to construct the mobile communications, mobile internet for 10 months. Well, let me comment about the time when we launched 250 plus project and onwards. That allowed us to ensure internet connectivity in over 1,500 places. 2 years ago, they didn't have any communications, no mobile internet. I don't know how those people actually survived. Did they participate in economic life of the country? Hardly. And right now, over a million, almost a million people are visible for the state, for the economy. They got integrated into life, into communications. And undoubtedly, of course, the task hasn't been accomplished with this. I am a great supporter of sharing. As I made a reference, in this room, in order for us to have 5G, we gotta have one mast, right? Just one mast for Beeline, one mast for Tele2, one mast for KCell, right? And in every single place, you gotta have 3 musts. I'm just keeping it very simple. So sharing actually allows us to decrease the costs for any client, as we are not magicians, right? We are technical guys who purchase the equipment and then, make it be in a service, and the net price is based on how much the equipment costs, right? The more equipment we have, the more expensive service for every one of us. The less equipment they have, the better access is, especially when it comes to 5G. So sharing is a good thing. It's not good for us. It's good for all people of Kazakhstan. I have nothing to say. I have nothing to say. So you agreed. Okay, good. Well, before the meeting, he was against the city. Actually, we have those panel sessions for these moments. Actually, yes, Igor, do you want to add? As a former technician, we have a discussion. As a former technician, I'd like to say that it is not necessary to have must in each and every premises. There's a very fragile moment. We mix up the technology and the frequency resource. We gotta put the same for LTE. For LTE, we also need to add the several masts in case if you don't have a good frequency resource, right? So if I'm asked about sharing, I'd say that there's cause and consequence, right? When there's social responsibility and the regions are not that rich, the state is liquidating the digital gap. I think that it is pretty harmoniously going. So this is not something that I'm going to share. I will invent a new tariff and so on and so forth.
And the place when we have social things, and it is very expensive to construct. It is really difficult when the sharing is really needed. And that is why this is very flexible system. It is self-regulating. And it is really very good when you can do it self-regulating, and then government plays really important role in Kazakhstan here. And about this rational approach, like in Scandinavia, the countries are quite rich, but they use the sharing. And in Scandinavia, they have this kind of system too, like several houses. Yes, each of them is really rich, but for 2 houses, Well, in China, the situation is the same. And at least that is another story, separate story. And this discussion is really alive. Igor does not like the idea of less antennas. The more, the better. And it is important to mention, especially after the previous presentation, if it was about 100 megabytes per minute, doesn't matter. And it will be quite difficult to dig it out. So, of course, it comes to this idea about this 5G that we want actually to achieve. We should remember about this. And we need to clearly understand what we're talking about, that we cover and we allow an opportunity to make calls, 5G calls, but it's not 100 megabytes per second. But of course, we can survive without antennas. But yes, the mathematics is right. For 3 of us, we have 3 antennas. Okay, thank you. If we talk about infrastructure, sometimes we forget that this core network, it's not enough that it will be just that transportation, about data transfer, about the situation that like here, the country is pretty large, and it's like in which phase the operators are. I'm the ex-employee, previous employee of Kazakh Telecom. In fact, the situation is pretty sad. As you know, can you please tell me what's interesting? The percentage of coverage? Yeah, it will be quite wonderful to get this number. I don't really know if I can say it instead of my colleagues, but the efficiency of this coverage cannot be more. Well, still, you know, we should understand about this 5G speed. It will be quite difficult to provide. If we want to have really good, high-quality 5G, we will need to place our orders, or you lead us to one infrastructure operator, one unified GSMA. Yes, well, we are always for competition, not structural operators, and we believe that operators, based on commercially beneficial services, can agree. Of course, we speak mostly about clients here. We can give this title 5G to our clients. It will be LTE Plus or LTE Advanced, this technology is called, or we can actually provide what we need. And the basic necessity of clients, that's speed, but everything is basically about this latency, what Evgeny Ivanovich was mentioning and Yerzhan Balatovich was mentioning this, that people will need to have this feedback, basically. And without any compromises here, basically. And for this, basically, providing opportunity 5G, speaking about mobile operators or this mobile consistency of the station, it's not enough. And to understand the problems, if we start with the land, it's about the fiber, globally speaking, and in the country here. A great synergy was shown by 2 state projects. One project on increasing the penetration and achieving of this fiber for the far away villages. It was a great project that was done with the support of the government, and there's another wonderful story, basically, cool story. And here, others could connect to this optic fiber. That was not just Kazakh Telecom, but others. And connecting to this LTE to use it. And I think that this the government wants to support and wants to continue and keep working on the continuation of drawing attention to this. And the second aspect is construction itself, these basic stations, and each 50 meters, and great number of problems. And I will try to speak frankly and open. The situation is quite hard in the Republic. After working on this coverage, we accepted these obligations, liabilities, having the means and purchasing the equipment. We will face great number of problems during the process of construction. And the legislation for legalization of these stations and the permission for this construction is really difficult process, and we can face at each stage we can face the refusal and rejection even after construction, all the investments to take away this basic station according to the requirements of one, let's say, a citizen or one inhabitant in the house, according to some circumstances, can ask to dismantle this station, and as operators we are obliged to do this. And those without connection, they write their claims to the regulator, and then they measure the quality of the connection and this network, and we cannot do it. So it's like kind of dead end, even at the moment. So for this coverage, we'll face many problems like that. And we will have to work a lot on this in order to change or adopt these regulations to this technology. So there will be an opportunity to construct this network. And the third aspect about these basic stations, we've covered it already. All these three, this optic fiber network with a high level of capillarity and the regulation norms about the accessibility, affordability of constructions for mobile operators and the equipment itself. I mean this frequency that we have discussed. So according to these three streams, we'll have to work a lot on that in order to have an opportunity to construct it, because now we have an understanding. We're sitting here and we are just saying yes or no, but it's not like this, because behind this yes from the side of operators, there's a great amount of work that we will have to do in order to make it possible. Thank you. A little remark. I was actually thinking about, we were talking about South Korea, how it's very well developed, and I was thinking that these basic stations, there are lots of them, and they're saying, like, what is the situation over there? And they say about this notification warnings. The operator comes, constructs, builds, and they work with documents, and the supervisor, regulatory authority, they say if they agree, they make the stamp, then another. But the station is already built and constructed. When there are so many basic stations, in fact, there is a lot of radiation. And since the basic station is far away from the smartphone, but if it is far away, then there's a problem. If there's a high density, then there is an opportunity to work this radio network at the low capacities. So whenever, very often people say, what about all this electromagnetic flow measurements? Yes, we measure it, but since it's all together really close, there is an opportunity to regulate this radio ways going. So let me start with this unexpected question. Raise your hand, those who have no connection to this telecom, to this business. Is there anybody here who do not understand? Only one person. Thank you. It's just super, probably journalist. And I have a question, if it is possible. We will get to this Q&A session. It's important. Now it's quite understandable that this amazing session for this infrastructure, we have just the representatives of the industry, but I believe that there are people who can watch it as a recording or being online. But those who watch us, I would like to address those people. I would like to explain it very simple. This place where all construction is, all these antenna stations, we call it site. So we call it just site. And if we simplify it, one operator has 10,000 sites where all this equipment is. The second operator, it's really, really roughly speaking, 10,000, and the third one has the same, so totally 30,000. And in order to increase 5G level, each site needs to get optical cable. And nowadays, what Ashat was saying, that's about this penetration percentage of this fiberization of fiber to site or cable to site. Somebody is like 20%, someone has 30, someone has 35. And from this 30,000 sites, we need about 20,000 all these cables physically. And in each place around the city, it's impossible to do it on the air. It's impossible to do it on this basically poles. So we need to dig it from this transport, from magistral, by means of all these roads and other communications. Is it possible? Yes, of course. We need to have regulation and money. But how much money do we need for these in order all get this desktop to 5G? That's why you can visualize it. And I would like to get back to the statuses. We were structuring, we were building, no problem. There is nothing new, nothing unexpected, but it will be expensive and it will require the transformation of regulation because when we build and construct the general plan of the city, what do you think? And electricity, yes. Roads, yes. Mobile networks, no. All new buildings of Astana without mobile network because Akimat didn't plan this. And inhabitants, they don't want it. So what can I do with this? I just walk around these houses. Can I place it? No. Akimat gave the land. No. This land providing an access to this land 6-9 months. So in order to have this construction separately, independently standing alone, there's such a cycle. 1 year out of this 12 months, do you know how much I spent to bring it and to basically construct it? 3 months. And the rest 9 months are basically spent on this running around all state authorities, provide some electricity, land, buy, sell, approve construction, and etc. But we do it, and you pay for it. So you spend your money on that without any doubts. I will start crying now. Thank you. Well, the question is that we shouldn't, I mean, I accept everything, I admit, and sometimes even more, this time to market, because we are in the group of Samruk, and we're really proud of it. Yes. But the idea is, yeah, we do have problems here, but again, Evgeny Ivanovich forgot to add that we need to bring this electricity diesel generator to the site so it wouldn't be off. Again, all colleagues are not interested in this, unfortunately, but the question is, it's not just about 5G, but 4G as well, and about 3G and everything. We need to have this collaboration with the government. Here the question is, it's understandable that it's our clients, yes, but this current time to market, when we are solving the problems of our clients, the best case, 6 months. 3 months, it's when it's some kind of force majeure, but usually a year. And I think from three of us, we are always involved in different activities, but again, speaking on how regulators and civil society can, we should have more active position. Electricity, like light, and water and internet, these are the basic needs of a human, and therefore we should consider it from this point of view. And it's not about mobile internet and home internet as well, because it's unlimited and more reliable. 1 minute of commercial for Kazakh Telecom, they're not here. But again, the situation is like this. I think that people are tired. Let's have this wrap up on this question. I think everybody said everything what we wanted to say, and everybody's ready, but we need the support of government. Well, what Sergei Fedorovich has mentioned about the optical, about backbone, about the transportation, we understand the critical importance for the technologies 5G and the case that was realized during 2018-2022, and as a result, 1,258 stations were connected to the fiber and optical, and we understand that 5G requires the optical transportation, and we will try to initiate another project, and we're working on the analysis of those that were not covered by the previous project, and such measures of governmental support are being discussed inside the ministry. But we want to include it in some regulatory governmental documents. And I do agree that the focus has shifted a little bit to the problems on regulatory aspect that exist, 5G, 4G, the construction norms and regulations, and the difficulties of land usage requirements and some other aspects. We have some problematic aspects, basically, speaking about the competency of other governmental authorities with whom we work actively and with whom we are ready to work. Some conservative views from some ministries, we try to explain that the world practice is a little bit different, and some sectoral difficulties are faced as well. We try to explain it. For example, Ministry of Healthcare. In our legislation, the most difficult requirements on these radiations, and in case of the meetings of digitalization and healthcare, we have drawn the attention, and we help with the digitalization in medical sphere and healthcare sphere, but again, we are trying to ask for some facilitation for our operators in this case. So basically, the work is being done in this direction, and we are trying not to forget about the idea of digital code design, and it will be higher in a hierarchy of regulatory documents when we can control some cross-industrial and interdisciplinary requirements of legislation. And the construction norms, we can regulate it as well. Of course, we are familiar with all these problems, and there is a help and support from the side of operators in all these explanations and feasibility studies and Stat and Learn international experience. So we're trying to move this way. Yeah, sorry. I just feel myself a little bit like guilty. The position is that's not we're not complaining. Yes, it's important because technology, LTE. Yes, it's we are just discussing the next step. We're discussing the next layer. We are discussing the next generation, the next G. And the question that is here, operators, why don't you construct? We don't have such a question. There is a start position that requires the political will that we need to construct it. We need to do this. And it's not just us participating in here. Each of us invests 10 billions of tenge annually, and even more, up to 150 billions of tenge. It depends on what kind of initiatives we have, and we are investing, and we are going to continue investing. It's not just we don't have money and we are trying to find some explanations why we don't want to do this. It's just we're discussing some moments, and we're discussing something that should be transformed, should be changed. You remember, money and transformation, and then 5G will be everywhere. This optimistic moment we would like to finish. Thank you so much. There were some questions, if I'm not mistaken. Thanks to all of you who were here till the end. Can we get the microphone, please? Yes, the microphone will be brought in a minute. Hello, my name is Bada Koziskakova, journalist, Kazakh 24 Info. And could you please comment, frankly speaking, based on the quality of internet that we have even here, this forum, really low speed, it's just Wi-Fi of press center, and I have internet, or there is no internet. Even my mobile data doesn't work. I'm the user of Beeline and Active, and I pay a lot, but I always need to switch back and forth, not only here, but in many sides of the city. And unfortunately, paying for this, even at home, for home internet, 3 operators I have, but very often I'm without internet. What do you think? You're talking about this 5G technologies. Is it possible to have this objective answer? At which level the coverage is at least 3G? What is the coverage of Kazakhstan? Number one. And number two, to the representative of AIFC, how many inhabitants they don't have internet? My parents bought 10 years ago the summer house. We go there in summer, 130 kilometers away from Kazakhstan. They don't have internet there, of course, and internet connection, mobile data doesn't work. So what is the percentage of such places don't have the access to internet? And in continuation of the first question, I read the information about National Associations of Communication and Digitalization and their analytical question, and about this question about residential place and settlements, and they've realized that in Kazakhstan we have regional disbalance. Only Astana Almaty sees the growth of networks, and even the citizens of this cities, residents, they also actually say about the low quality of internet connection. 2G, 3G, if it's possible to exclude, and what's the percentage of Kazakhstani is covered with 3G or 4G or 5G? So regarding 3G, well, with the level of coverage, I mean the percentage of penetration in population, it's a very difficult question. Today, President of the panel session asked about the coverage of territories. Coverage of the territories and population, that's different. And 3G is more than 90%. The precise information, clear data, we will provide for you. You will be working on the materials, and you'll be working on this. And PR manager will be supporting this. If we talk about the quality of connection, here, of course, I experience some issues and problems as well, because here it's a quite unusual concentration of people, and if not this forum, I don't even know that there is such. I wouldn't even know about the existence of this building, frankly speaking. I'm sorry, we're just go to this Astana forum or this expo. There is great coverage of 5G in Astana Hub since 2019, and if we are talking about this place from the side of Active, I use all three mobile operators, and all the time I search for the connection. At this moment, KCell works well, not bad. So let me share with you. So I will have this modem mode. Speaking about the quality in cities and in villages, I can say that yes, with the minister, we visit different business trips, and Sergey has mentioned that half of the country we've covered. We see the necessity and demand on internet is critical. No internet at all. People want to have 2G, 3G. Such a level of connection is provided, and what was reported to the president today, people have the access to internet fixed or as fiber or our mobile internet. One out of those three operators, at least they have one. And so and okay, those who are going to listen to our broadcasting, fiber is not everywhere. There are some objective reasons. It's good. People want to have this fiber home, but there's tariff, and you need to pay it again. There's unlimited tariff. There's fixed operators and etc. People want to have more, and we always say, and we understand the wish from our clients to have better services and etc. But we work based on the balance of our interests. So we have the clients, they're the most important for us, and there is economical explanation and understanding, and we do our best. We have the best efforts to provide this access to our clients. And I know that, of course, we can say it endlessly where we invest. It's 250 plus, and to those villages where we have the stations. So using our own financial means, we go from this relay to 4G, and about the group of Kazakh Telecom, about 600 villages with a population more than 500 people population. I think that place, that location that you're talking about, we will give the exact information when we will be able to reach that place. Well, I was quiet, you know, Evgeny Ivanovich. Let me to jump a little bit here as a dolphin speaking and providing my speech at the end. So answering your question, of course, we cannot provide this information, so everybody would be happy. And within the frameworks of these tariffs, with a minimum increase, and to give an opportunity to the to more people to have high quality connection. Let me add a little bit more to the comments of my colleague. I would like to start with one statement, which I would say this way: to complain on internet and network quality, people will always basically have some claims. for future. This is statement number one. Then I would like to say something more. Daily, about 100 million events in our nets. You remember our technicians, what the events are. To have the internet connection, to send a short message, to accept the call, about 100 million events per day. And even if we provide the level of reliability, not 3 but 4 nines, that all profile industrial specialists will prove that it's not just the standard, but like the target or dream, you can calculate how many tens of thousands unsuccessful events will happen during the day. And all these events are gonna be given to the social nets. So what you read, that is the social in social nets, nobody writes about successful events. I tried to call and it was wonderful. Okay, let's have likes. Of course, everybody writes about something that didn't work. And this is the first part of this statement. Then I wanted to share my problem. My son, teenager, 15 years old, and during this time, every year I buy new clothes. Last year I bought everything to him, and this year I buy the new clothes for him again, and it happens because of his growth, unless this growth stops, because he grows and grows and grows every year. So my network consists of 450,000 components, and in order to provide an opportunity for this network to be all over the country, 450,000, some servers, some cables, something, that's all about 450,000. But the body, that's the traffic. So traffic grows every year, so it grows out of these components, out of these clothes. In 2016, the average client of Beeline consumed 3 gigabytes of internet. In 2022, consumes 20 gigabytes per month. So that is the tempo of growth of the teenager. And 20, that's not the limit. Today, we were shown the average consumption 3G 50. That's where it was already launched. And I have such traffic champions that actually have 400 per month, and I don't understand where is that limit when the teenager would stop growing, which means we will continue to buy this new clothes, develop it, and spend money, and the number of elements will not decrease. The number of unsuccessful events with these 4 nines will be quite large, and of course, people will always claim on that. Just 3 numbers. 5G in Turkestan, and the increasing of the consumption of traffic 7 times, and our revenue increased 700% into 20%. So think about this. And we're speaking about the son of Evgeny Ivanovich. He will grow endlessly. He will grow geometrically speaking, and he will consume more money. And unfortunately, we will always have people who are going to be unsatisfied, our premium, and we will try to help each client. But nevertheless, we mostly work, statistically speaking, with those where we can improve the quality of network, and it's just pure mathematics. As the result, I would like to say that the characteristics of the network That's what we basically compete, and it's not in our interest to give any problems to our clients. And I cannot be responsible for Wi-Fi in the center. I checked the speed test. 62 megabytes is provided per second. I think it's good. Let me check, and I think at the end, while Ashat has his measures, we can say that the point of view of the cost of network, Kazakhstan is on the 6th place from the end in the world. Speaking about the quality of the bandwidth that can be measured differently, we're somewhere in the middle. And if we talk about the quality and cost, we'll be in the first third of the list of the whole world. And the quality that is provided is rather adequate. It's not that we don't do anything. Of course, sun grows 1/3 per year. Our common sun grows 20-30% per year if we speak about the traffic. So for us to understand about this measurements, everybody understands that this huge unit on measuring the network, Tele2, Altel, was recognized the best one according to the measures of the clients. Well, of course, we're not shy about our success. So yeah, that is the result of our daily work. That's all from my side. Okay, let the operators go. Yeah, well, the operators work 24/7. Thanks a lot for your time, for your attention.